When I changed shifts at the casino and went to another night graveyard shift, one of the guys I met, when he found out that I was clergy, the first thing he said to me was, "So you believe in a talking snake?" Well, that made me think, believe it or not, what other outrageous things has the Bible said that people take the wrong way? Well, there's a bunch of them, like raising the dead. That's a pretty profound statement. Jesus raised the dead. You think about that without the blinders of our Christianity on, and it sounds outrageous. One of the more startling claims is in our epistle reading today. It's one that we've heard so often that perhaps the boldness of it has worn off. We have to keep in mind that the name of God was so precious to the Old Testament Jews that they never mentioned his name. They wouldn't speak it. God's image was so precious and vast that it was not to be depicted on graven images. When God is spoken of throughout the pages of the Bible, the writers speak, he's often spoken in terms of a metaphor. The writers were far more comfortable talking about what God is like than they were to say for certainty who God is. But here in our epistle, that carefulness and hesitation is thrown to the side, and John writes 3 words that are so profound and startling and amazing that we tend to just overlook it. God is love. 3 words, but apart from this truth, we have no hope at all. Without God, there is no love. Love begins with God, and love comes from God. While we were still sinners, God sent Jesus to us to save us because he loves us. Love is central to who God is, and as people created in the image of God, it has to be central to who we are too. In fact, verse 8 says, "Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love." Sometimes I wonder if radical statements like God is love have lost their depth and power because we are constantly bombarded with weak concepts of love. We talk about loving certain kinds of food. We love our church. We love certain television programs. We love sports. We equate love with something that makes us happy or something that makes us feel a certain way. But love extends far beyond all of that. Love is unexpected. It often comes to us as the exact opposite of what we thought we'd get. Love is unafraid. It knows that when all is said and done, the one we will stand before in judgment is the one who loves us. Love wins. Even in the face of struggle and adversity, love will win in the end. Throughout the pages of the Old Testament, we find the cultural idea that bad people get bad things and good people get good things. Take, for example, the book of Job. When suffering befalls Job, his friends come to him and start telling him of all of the terrible things that he must have done to deserve it. But we all know that things don't work out that way. Sometimes people who do terrible things get away with it, and even more, they prosper. And they have all sorts of wonderful opportunities fall into their laps. And on the flip side, we've watched wonderful people suffer in ways that they never could have deserved. And it just doesn't seem fair. The amazing thing is that while we were completely and utterly undeserving, God sent Jesus to save us. When our separation from God should have destroyed us, God found a way to redeem us. Before we could ask for it, God had already given. So love is unexpected. Love is patient when we're probably expecting impatience or anger. Love is kind in an unkind world. Love begins with God, and as people created in God's image, we love because God loves us. Love is unexpected. Love is unafraid. Now, I'm not saying that we'll never have fears. I'm pretty sure the next time that I see a spider run across the floor, there'll be a shiver run down my spine. So fear is very real. When John says perfect love casts out fear, he isn't saying we'll never be afraid of anything, but we don't have to be afraid of God. God's holiness, God's perfection, and all of God's vast and infinite power has been held together with his perfect love. Love is the beginning point in the story of salvation, and it begins with God. It doesn't hinge on our perfection, thank goodness. God is love, and even though God's love is unexpected, something we didn't earn, he gives it to us abundantly. When we live knowing the love that God has shown us, we won't be afraid of judgment. Love is unexpected, love is unafraid, and love wins. In other words, it begins with love, and it will end with love. And this is the best news there could ever be. We can't miss the struggle and the brokenness of this world. We can't miss the injustice, the hatred, and suffering. Even though we know that love will overcome, even though we know that love will win in the end, sometimes we despair. Sometimes we wonder if this is as good as things will ever get. And we feel afraid. When the hatred seems the strongest, when the cost seems too high, when it seems impossible to love to win in the end, love will triumph. In 1964, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. He accepted the award at a time in history when the struggle was very real, when peace seemed impossible, when justice and freedom and equality seemed like mere pipe dreams. He accepted the award at a time in history that is not much different than the world we face today. With threats of nuclear war, with systemic poverty and injustices, it's a time in which we may hear the assurance from God that love will overcome, and we find it hard to believe. As Dr. King accepted this Nobel Prize, he acknowledged that peace had not fully come yet. He acknowledged that the struggle was still real and powerful and present. He also said this: "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant." Even though it's a messy system, we're called to carry the love of God with us everywhere we go. Even though we're miserably imperfect, we participate in the love of God by loving others. As it says in our reading, we love because He first loved us. The love of God is unexpected. It chooses the strange, the outcast, the imperfect, the broken. The love of God is unafraid. We can stand with boldness on the day of judgment because the judge is the one who made the first move to love us anyway. The love of God wins. God's love began it all, and God's love will see it through to completion. Today, as we're nourished by God's word at this table, we're reminded that this meal where we encounter the Lord has often been called a feast of love. It is here that we can taste and see. It's here that we can shake off the name unlovable given to us by this world and claim the name beloved that was given to us by God. As we eat, may we be filled with the love of God so that we may find the courage to go forth into the world with the unexpected, unafraid, and overwhelming love of God. Amen.
Amen.
Remember the words of our Lord Jesus, how He said it is more blessed to give than to receive.